Today, we have the latest updates on the Islanders GM search, including a Lou Lamoriello sighting in another NHL city. All that and more next on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
You're Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Thursday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. I'm Gil Martin. I've been covering the New York Islanders for almost 2 decades, and I wrote the book Ice Wars on the history of the Islanders' rivalry with the Rangers from 1972 to the modern era. So glad you could join us today to talk a little Islanders hockey. We've got a busy show today. We're going to have the latest updates on the Islanders GM search, including a Lou Lamoriello sighting in a different NHL city. The Bobby Nystrom Award winner is announced, and I think it's a very fitting one. Plus, we continue our player-by-player review of the Islanders with Kyle Palmieri. We'll discuss his season and his potential future with the team. All that and more on today's show. Obviously, the biggest story surrounding this Islander team remains the GM search. And I am going to say that the earliest that we're going to hear anything is most likely next week. And when I say hear anything, I think next week is the earliest that the Islanders may indeed be announcing their choice as GM. And there are some reasons it could take longer than that. But to get everyone up to date with what we know, today, Thursday, Ken Holland will be introduced as the new general manager of the LA Kings. So obviously, he is out of the running for the Islanders job. He was allegedly, according to Arthur Staple and several other reports, the Islanders' first choice, but he chose the LA job. Jeff Gorton of the Canadiens, their VP of hockey operations. The Islanders still want him, but the Canadiens have said, no, you're not going to be able to speak to him. So it doesn't appear likely that he will be a candidate. Brendan Shanahan, the Leafs president, whose contract expires June 30th, he still possibly in the running. Not sure whether he would be the team president of hockey operations and then bring in his own GM. I think that might be more likely. The question is, with the Maple Leafs still in the playoff hunt, how much longer would it take with Shanahan to even be granted permission to do an interview? And then if the Leafs do indeed go deeper into the playoffs, it makes Shanahan's possible staying in Toronto much more possible. So Shanahan probably more of a long shot right now. Now, there are 3 candidates who have interviewed this week, again, according to Arthur Staple of The Athletic and several other reports. You've got Marc Bergevin, the former Canadiens GM. You've got Jarmo Kekäläinen, the former Blue Jackets GM. And then you have Tampa Bay Lightning assistant GM, Mathew Darche. So those are the 3 candidates that the Islanders spoke to this week. And it's interesting because, Darche is the one of the 3 candidates who is a little bit different than the other 2, in that he has not had direct GM experience yet at the NHL level. And basically, he has been very active with the Lightning, and that maybe makes him more of a interesting candidate to the Islanders. A lot of the time, the assistant GM concentrates on the AHL team or on scouting or the salary cap or some specific role. But Darche seems to have been doing almost everything under Julien Brisebois. So again, you have a guy who maybe only has the title of assistant GM, but at the same time, seems to have a little bit more experience than your typical assistant GM, and that may make him more appealing to the New York Islanders. Now, someone the Islanders have not interviewed yet, but who still could be a candidate, is Scott White, the director of hockey operations for the Dallas Stars and the GM of their AHL affiliate, the Texas Stars. Now, he's been in the Stars organization as the director of hockey operations for 12 years. And in 8 of those 12 years and 6 of the last 7, the Stars have been a playoff team. And their AHL team has also done very well, which is certainly something the Islanders need to be concerned with. They've won a Calder Cup, they've won 3 division titles, and played in 3 Calder Cup finals. So again, winning in the AHL is not necessarily priority 1, but the fact remains that the New York Islanders have to completely revamp and rebuild their Bridgeport Islanders organization. And while winning Calder Cups is great, developing talent is usually priority 1 in the AHL. And, again, the Bridgeport Islanders have struggled in that area also. The catch with this, however, is that the Dallas Stars are still in the playoffs, and they are up 3-1 right now as of Wednesday night over the Winnipeg Jets. So they have a good chance, nothing in stone, obviously, but they have a good chance of advancing to the conference final, in which case, again, unless permission is given, you're looking at another 10 days to 2 weeks if the Stars lose in the conference final in order to get permission to speak to Scott White. So these are all candidates as of right now. There may be some other people who are getting consideration, but those are the names that have been mentioned in the press by reliable sources. Now, the other thing that happened last night, before, just after actually we went on the air, there was a Lou Lamoriello sighting at the airport in Buffalo. And apparently Lou was speaking to someone in the Sabres organization about the potential of an advisory position in the Sabres organization. And I actually early Wednesday morning went on a radio show as a guest in Buffalo to discuss what, Lou might mean. And I think Lou would be a good fit for the Buffalo Sabres organization as an advisor because, A, he wouldn't be in full control. So you wouldn't necessarily have the no facial hair, no high numbers, those minor irritants that kind of can drive a few players away. But the other thing is this: the Sabres haven't made the playoffs in 14 years now, far too long a time. And Lou Lamoriello, I think, could do for the Sabres, or help do for the Sabres, what he did for the Islanders, which was, if you recall, get them from the wilderness and the inconsistency that they had to a perennial playoff team. Now, he failed to get them from the team that barely but usually makes the playoffs to the real contender. But you know what? If you look at the Islanders and what they accomplished in the time that Lou was there, the fact that the Islanders only missed the playoffs, twice in 6 or 7 seasons under Lou, the Sabres would take that in a heartbeat based on where they've been. So that might be a good match. And again, Lou could go to Buffalo. He could stay on the island in an advisory capacity, but it appears increasingly likely that Lou Lamoriello's time as having direct influence over the new GM, even if he stays on the island, it's not going to be direct. Anything, it would be indirect, and we can get into the details of that a little bit more on a future episode. All right, we have got a lot more to get to. The Islanders announced the winner of the Bob Nystrom Award, and I think it was very fitting. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Kyle Palmieri's season and his potential future role with the Islanders. And for our Islanders birthday of the day, a forward who was with the Islanders in the mid to late 2010s, early 2020s, but they lost him to an expansion team. Let's see if you can guess who that is. All that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Which players are showing up in the biggest moments, and how could tracking their trends help you build your next bet? What would it look like to combine live prop bets mid-game based on how the action unfolds? If you've got a read on who's heating up, why not back it up with the same-game parlay? And how about a $200 bonus in bets to add to the excitement if your first $5 bet wins? If you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. So the Islanders announced the winner of the Bob Nystrom Award on Wednesday, and I think this one just was very fitting. And the 2025 winner is Matt Martin. That is the 7th time that Matty Martz has won the Bob Nystrom Award, although he hasn't won it since 2020, so it's been a while. But you may recall that from 2012 through 2016, so that was 5 years in a row, Matt Martin won that award. And, you know, Martin is 8th all-time on the Islanders in games played. The Nystrom Award is, someone who exemplifies leadership, hustle, and dedication. And there is no doubt that Matt Martin was dedicated this year. He only played in 32 games, came into the season on a PTO without a guarantee of a roster spot, in spite of the fact that he's been an Islander for so long and been such a big part of the Islanders community. And, it just made sense to give it to Matt Martin. Not so much for what he did on the ice this year, because his contributions were rather limited, both in games played, minutes played, and, what do you have? 2 assists in the 32 games that he played. But no one was more dedicated to the Islanders franchise, to the community, and he plays the game, when he's in the game, the right way, and always has. This award for Matt Martin, no question about it, is more of a career achievement award than it is based on what he did this year. But Matt Martin deserves it. Again, the 7th time he's won the trophy, and most likely the last, because very unlikely that Matt Martin will be returning to the New York Islanders as a player next year. Martin, by the way, also the Islanders nominee for the King Clancy Trophy, which is awarded to the player in the NHL who best exemplifies leadership qualities on and off the ice, has made a noteworthy humanitarian contribution to his community, and that award, the King Clancy Trophy, will be given out at the NHL Awards night. In case you're wondering, since Matt Martin won it in 2020, the winners have been J.G. Pageau in 2021, Zach Parise in 2022 and 2023, and Cal Clutterbuck last year. And Clutter announced his retirement. So this would be the second year in a row that a player who is more or less on the verge of retiring, kind of, or at least is not going to be back with the Islanders, ends up winning that award. So we'll see how this all plays out. And one other question that I think a lot of people have discussed, and I've seen it on social media and in comments on YouTube, so I wanted to address it briefly. How long is it going to take to get this Islander team back to a legitimate playoff contender? And, it's the retool versus reset debate, and I think it's something that definitely should be addressed. I think this upcoming season is a transition season. I would be surprised if the Islanders are in the playoffs this year, but I think that it's a good thing and a necessary thing that, again, this organization may be taking one step back in order to take 2 or 3 steps forward, and it is going to take time. In my mind, you've got a lot of assets here that you can build around. You've got Bo Horvat, you've got Mathew Barzal, you've got Ilya Sorokin, you've got, hopefully in a year or two, Cole Yzerman, Callum Ritchie coming, hopefully this upcoming season, getting his NHL feet wet beyond the 8 games or so that he already has played in this league. And you've got the first overall pick in this year's draft, 2 first-round picks in the 2026 draft. And keep in mind, again, that those 3 first-round picks, this year 1, 2 next year, they're not necessarily going to have an immediate impact. And that doesn't mean they don't play in the NHL right away, although I would say if only one of the 3 do, that would maybe be a pleasant surprise. But what we're talking about here are players who, again, 2 to 3 years down the road can develop into really good players that give this team hope. Hope was the one thing that was seemingly lacking the last couple of years under Lou Lamoriello's leadership, because Lou kept doubling down on the same core as they got older, and the results really didn't change. And the lack of cap space, which hopefully will be cleared up a bit this coming year, if the new GM makes a few shrewd and smart moves and gets a little creative, you could free up some cap space, you can get younger, you can start building for the future, and don't rule out a trade or a free agent signing. Again, the Islanders have never in the history of this franchise signed an elite free agent. We've heard them in the conversation how many times for so many different big-time free agents, and it's always been, they took less money to go somewhere else, or ultimately they didn't sign with the Islanders. I get it. But if you can get a Nikolai Ehlers or a Mitch Marner, that changes the whole equation. But I'm not going to count on that. I'd love to see it, but I'm not going to count on it. And so maybe if you get this new GM to trade away some of these veterans who, have been great Islanders and who I like, but in a retool, it may make more sense, whether it's during this offseason or as we get closer to the trade deadline, to trade an Anders Lee or a JG Pageau and get more picks and more prospects or younger players in return. If you could turn Anders Lee or JG Pageau into a 23 or 24-year-old forward or defenseman who's up and coming and playing well, you're putting the team and the retool into a much better place. So I think there are possibilities, but I think realistically speaking, you're talking about a 2 to 3 year process to get this team. Maybe, this year you look for signs of hope and you get your new coach in, the new coach implements a system, the new GM chooses a direction for the team and starts to implement that plan. And then by 2026, 2027, you're probably looking at maybe we can make the playoffs. And then the year after that, you're probably looking at, hey, we can start thinking about contending, being considered more of a serious contender. It may not be that quick, but that's the most optimistic scenario. And I think based on the way ownership has been, that's the path they're more likely to want to pursue rather than a lengthier San Jose Sharks or Chicago Blackhawks style rebuild. But we'll see. We still need to know who the new GM is going to be and then whether Patrick Waugh stays on as coach. So we'll see how it all plays out. And obviously, we'll have the latest for you every step of the way here on the Locked On Islanders podcast. We've got more to get to on today's show. Kyle Palmieri's season and where he fits in with the Islanders going forward. We'll talk about that, plus our Islanders birthday of the day, all that and more still to come on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. So we continue our player-by-player look at the Islanders, their seasons that were, where they fit in the future, if at all, with this franchise. And, yesterday, everydayers will remember we had Simon Holmstrom on and analyzed him and his future potential and future role with the team, gave him a grade. Today, we're going to take a look at Kyle Palmieri. Now, remember, Palms is an unrestricted free agent, and Lou Lamoriello was negotiating a new deal with him. Whether or not that deal is now on hold pending the new GM, or whether there was something signed that now, will become official down the road, we don't know. But here's the deal with Kyle Palmieri. This past year, he played in all 82 games. That was great for the second year in a row. Had 24 goals, 48 points. He was a minus 17. Was on ice for an average of 18 and a half minutes a game and had 20 penalty minutes. The shots on goal went down dramatically for Kyle Palmieri. Went down from 218 in 82 games a year ago to 169 this year. But ironically, the shot attempts are not that far down. He had 384 shot attempts in 2023-2024 and 363 shot attempts this past season. So the attempts aren't there, but his shots weren't getting to the net as often for whatever that's worth. Palmieri always part of the Islanders' power play, and he did score 5 power play goals this year and added 4 assists on the power play. We know the Islanders' power play struggled, but Palmieri was one of the bigger contributors to that unit. And at 34 years old, the question to me that has to be asked is where does Kyle Palmieri fit? Even if you're retooling, you do want a certain amount of veteran presence to provide experience and leadership. You do want that. No question about it. But here's the scenario. Kyle Palmieri can hit the open market. And it wouldn't, in my mind, make sense to go beyond a 2-year deal for Palms right now at his age to stay on the island. It is realistically possible. I'm willing to give him, $3-4 million a year, maybe $5 million, to stay for a year. Maybe it would be $5 million for 1 year, $8.5 million for 2 years. But I think overall, he'll probably get better offers from another team where, add Kyle Palmieri to a team that is like the Anaheim Ducks, where he could add some leadership and step in and help that team get to the playoffs for the first time in a few years and mentor some of the younger players, and maybe they're willing to give him a 3 or 4 year offer. So I would welcome Kyle Palmieri back, but I would keep the term lower. I would not go beyond 2 years, and I'm not going to break the bank. He's a useful player. He is more than capable of giving you another 20 to 25 goal season. But remember, at his age, the likelihood is if you give him a 3 or 4 year deal, that each subsequent year, because of his age, the likelihood of injury goes up, and the likelihood that he will start to see his level of play tail off goes up. So each subsequent year of the contract, you're probably going to get diminishing returns. So that's what I would do as far as Kyle Palmieri is concerned. He's a Long Island native. He's been a really good Islander. I like what he does on and off the ice, but I would not keep him here for more than 2 seasons. And I think he'll probably be able to get a better deal somewhere else. We'll see what happens. It's not going to happen until we know who the new GM is going to be. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. And, well, today is the 35th birthday of former Islanders winger Jordan Eberle, the Regina, Saskatchewan native, a first-round pick of the Oilers back in 2008. He was the 22nd overall pick, made his NHL debut with Edmonton in 2010-2011, joined the Islanders in 2017-2018, had 25 goals and 59 points that year, stayed on the island through the 2020-2021 season, and then joined the Seattle Kraken, where he's played for the last 4 years. Eberle, still active, had 9 goals and 26 points in 42 games last year for Seattle, has played 1,060 games in his NHL career, 308 goals, 420 assists, 728 points, only 265 penalty minutes, add 19 goals and 47 points in 76 playoff games with a sizable number. I mean, he was a big part of the Islanders' runs to the conference finals in 2019 and 2020. One of his better games as an Islander, we go back to October 28th, 2017, the Islanders visiting Music City to take on the Nashville Predators. Jarmo Halak, the goalie for the Islanders. UC Saros, the goalie for the Nashville Predators. And early in the game, with Ryan Johansson in the box for hooking, our Islanders' birthday of the day, Jordan Eberle scores his first goal of the season. Ryan Polak and Anthony Beauvillier with the assists. It's 1-0 Islanders. Then with the Islanders up 2-1 late in the second, Eberle strikes again, this time at even strength. Mathew, Barzal, and Brock Nelson with the assists. The Islanders go up by a score of 3-1 after 40 minutes. In the third period, Eberle sets up John Tavares, and the Islanders go on to win this game by a score of 6-2 for Jordan Eberle. 2 goals, 1 assist. He's a +2. He did score the game winner, and he had 2 goals on 4 shots in only 13 minutes and 47 seconds of ice time. So Jordan Eberle is our Islanders' birthday of the day. Thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. You can find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL, on YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your name and where you're from, your first name, where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. We're going to do the mailbag tomorrow for Friday, so get those questions in. You could follow the show on X at Locked On Isles. You could follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR-VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all the latest Islanders news throughout this critical offseason. And it's great to talk Islanders hockey with you, game time or anytime. Every day as we're back tomorrow, we will continue our player-by-player analysis of the Islanders. We're going to talk a little Adam Boqvist tomorrow. We'll see if he has a future role with this organization. He is also a free agent coming up this offseason. Plus, we'll have the latest on the Islanders GM search, and we'll answer some of your mailbag questions as well. Until then, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe, and of course, let's go Islanders.